everybody. Today we're going to look at the grade 7 coding expectations as we move into our secondary panel. And again, you'll notice as we look at our first expectation, it says solve problems and create computational representations of mathematical situations by writing and executing efficient code, including code that involves events influenced by a defined count and/or subprogram and other control structures. And so you may notice from our grade 6 expectation, our new addition into the expectation is the defined count and/or subprogram that would go with that. And so a defined count simply means when we have a loop and it repeats over and over and over, a defined count still will represent where it needs to stop at the end of the loop. It can't just stop randomly, it has to stop at a particular spot. You'll also notice that when it talks about writing and executing efficient code, we saw in our last example, our student ambassador working in Lynx Coding was able to program her sprite going through the entire floor plan of our school with one line of code by using loops and some of the other features that we have within our subprograms. And so that would be an extremely efficient code and what we really want to be looking for as we go through these expectations. You will notice as we continue working through them, these expectations can be absolutely done with 1 or 2 lines of code if you know how to write them properly. And so that's really what we're going to be looking for in this particular one. So the challenge that we have with this one is how do we show a defined count in terms of a mathematical situation? And so I'm going to jump us over to Santa Claus and how Santa Claus delivers his presents. And so in this particular case, when I take my Santa Claus, he's going to fly to my first house. He's going to fly to my second house. He's going to fly to my third house. And he's going to fly to my fourth house. Now, if I wanted to represent this in terms of a larger program, I can now use this as a loop. And so Santa will go to house 1, house 2, house 3, house 4, and he keeps going around and around to those same houses. But I need to put within my defined count in my program exactly which house will he stop at the very end. And so we're actually getting back to that repeated pattern aspect because I don't want him just to stop randomly. I don't want to, for example, have a particular space or a particular line where he's just going to stop. I actually want him to stop at a particular house. And so if I call this house number 1, here's number 2, here's number 3, and here's number 4, within my loop, I want to signify this is the house where he's going to stop. I'm going to ask our student ambassadors, though, to take this one step further in terms of putting some more control structures in, as we can see from our expectation, and that we can, once Santa delivers through all of his loops and ends up at house number 4 and successfully drops the present there, we're going to have a celebration of some type. Whether it's the present popping open and flowers or something flying around, or we may have a sound or some music start playing to signify that the program has came to an end. And so that's what we're going to be looking at, including within our Scratch and our Lynx coding, is that added element at the end in terms of another control structure. And really, again, that's what the grade 7 expectation can look like. And it can be that simple. So at this point, I'm going to turn it over to our ambassadors and we're going to see what they can create.
Okay, so today we're going to be using Lynx Coding to learn about defined counts and control structures. So defined count is basically a loop that has an ending point. and this house is going to be our ending point. Now there's also an extra control structure here. It'll move on to the next page when this Santa Claus hits this house. So I'm going to run the code for you now. You see? And now I'm going to show you how to execute it. So our first code, which is used to move the Santa Claus, will be set heading 270, glide 460, and you can choose the speed. Set heading 180, glide 280, set heading 90, glide 490, set heading 0, glide 280. Now, just to let you know, these numbers may vary depending on the placement of your sleigh and your houses. Now, to our next code, which is to make our houses turn into presents when our sleigh touches them. So you're gonna want to use a touch turtle thing to make sure Lynx knows that you want this code to be executed when a turtle is touched instead of clicked. And then set shape 3, set size 10, end. And now for our fourth house, to make it go to the next page, we're going to do the same thing as our last code. Set shape 3, set size 10, and then we're going to add a page 2. Just make sure you don't name the procedure page 2. And that's all.